You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 72. This week on the show, it's history time. We tell some stories about how HP got started, and we share with you some hunting stories from seasons past. All right, welcome to the 72nd episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We're your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. I'm your host, Josh Palm. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can come over to our Facebook listeners group and check us out there. You can also find us at iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all the places that you can find quality podcast content. And of course, you can head over to hpoutdoors.com and find everything there as well. Joining me this week, as he always does, the man of many names, which is being highly debated currently, but we'll go with Minivan Dan. What's up, man?
The Minivan definitely had the most votes on a poll, and I don't even know how that got started, but there was some, Swagger Wagon Dan, and some really just, interesting names. I'm not used to that. But anyway, so I usually talk about weather. We've had some really nice days, and then I woke up this morning to a foot of snow. We're recording this on Friday. What is today? The 3rd? 2nd, 3rd?
It's the
2nd. Friday the 2nd.
2nd, yeah.
Friday the 2nd. So I woke up to a foot of snow outside, and just that heavy, wet snow that's tough to even get out of your driveway type deal. So got the quad out, plowed it out, and, that's where we're at. Came in like a lion, right?
Yeah. It's funny because weather, the Northeast is getting hit with kind of these, whatever they call these storms these days. But
nor'easter. Yeah. I hate, and I talked about that today. Why are they naming every storm that brings snow, they name it?
Well, they
literally
need to grab a headline, man, whatever it is.
No, but seriously, I can't handle it.
But we had today here in Virginia, we had high wind advisories, and it was to the point where schools were closed, government was shut down, all of that kind of stuff. And, wind is something that I kind of just disrespect in general. I'm just kind of like, it's windy, whatever. Dude, I'm telling you right now, I sent you pictures today. I was sitting in my office and I heard this noise and I look out the window and my neighbor's play set has blown over on its side. And I'm not talking like, little like aluminum pole swing set that like I had when I was a kid. This is one of those big daddies with, it had the enclosed like swirly tube slide, like a whole arm with like 3 swings off to the side, climbing wall, like the whole deal. That thing just toppled over in their yard. It was insane. And then you look out across the street from my house, literally every house has shingles just blowing off. Like it was raining shingles around my neighborhood today. I think my house survived, fortunately, just kind of the way the wind was hitting us. But some people, like literally half their roof, every shingle gone, tar paper tearing up, like really, really bad. So, I know a lot of trees were knocked down, obviously, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a wild day here for weather. And I don't know why I do this to myself. Maybe it's just because I'm a baseball player, by nature. But I always think that when we roll over to March, I equate that with spring. And yet we always get terrible weather in March, and we always get that late March snowstorm because I can remember, we'd just be thinking, all right, we're going to get to go outside and practice finally. And then it would snow and we'd be like, dang it, now we're back in the gym or whatever. So March is a tough month and we're off to a tough start weather-wise.
Yeah, that was always crappy. We'd head down to like Georgia and, for spring break, and they'd be on their 24th game, and it was our first time outside.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're ranked 12th in the nation right now. I'm like, oh, this is our first practice outside and seeing actual sunlight while we're trying to hit a baseball. Sweet. That's great.
Yeah,
but no. So
no, real quick with that tour. My sophomore year, we traveled to Arizona State to open our season. They were 23-1 at the time, and they're ranked number 1 in the country. They had Dustin Pedroia, Andre Ethier, Travis Buck, like all future big leaguers. Pedroia MVP of the league, like legit just studs on that team. And they had 24 games under their belt, and we were like, yeah, we're just brushing the dust off our cleats. We're just getting in dirt for the first time.
Oh my God.
Tough putt there.
I didn't know Petroia went there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's one of my favorite players.
Yeah. He played shortstop in college and he could hit, obviously. Yeah. No,
still can't.
I crossed a lot of, pretty legit big leaguers, in college. Those guys, we played down at Miami when Ryan Braun was there. We played against Ohio State when Nick Swisher was there. So, guys that made some noise in the league got to, take their hacks off of me and usually got their fair share.
Yeah. Swisher is a stud too.
Yeah.
And then Braun's still out of his mind, but yeah. So anyway, the weather is crap, but is what it is. So we got a lot, from our last episode with Brady, a great response from everyone. So thank you for the emails and messages. I thought that was a great episode, and apparently a lot of other people did as well. So we appreciate all the feedback on that.
Yeah. No, I think that was a good one. And, it was interesting because a lot of guys either have kids or expecting kids, have nephews or whatever the situation might be. And there was just a lot of really good stuff that came out of that one. And it applies to a lot of different people in a lot of different situations. So I think that was one of the better ones we've had. So if you're new to the show and you haven't checked that one out yet, definitely check out that episode 71 that we did with Brady Davis. Was really, really a good one for us, I thought.
Yes, sir.
So this week we've decided
what do you want
to tackle. So I've been super slammed at work this week, and we didn't have a lot of time to really game plan anything. So literally, we've got some feedback that guys like sort of the ad-libbed kind of just free-flowing nature of some of the episodes where it's kind of not scripted and we're just kind of flowing and getting into discussion, just kind of like, every guy out there listening to this show does with his buddies when he's sitting in the blind or yakking on the phone or whatever. So I literally have nothing written down for this episode. I don't know what you got, but basically what we've talked about covering this week is a little bit of how we started, because it seems like, we've got a rush of a lot of new listeners coming in. I think we added like over 100 people to the listeners group alone this week. And the listeners group right now is kind of like hovering at about half of the amount of people that have liked our Facebook page and things like that. So that's really growing quickly. And a lot of guys are coming in and then they get in and they invite friends and stuff. So a lot of people are just getting introduced to the show for the first time and don't know a lot about us and kind of our background and how we sort of got started. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that, because I know you've fielded that question a bunch of times this week alone. And then we're going to spend some time just kind of talking a little bit about stories that are going to come up along the way, things that, sort of shaped us and molded us, sort of how we got to this point. And, I'm sure as we go through this, a lot of guys will probably be able to relate, at least to some extent, on some of that stuff. And, we'll just see where the show goes this week and kind of see, cross those bridges as we come to them.
Yeah. And now it's funny you bring up the listeners group, and I made a comment on there. I think, we just had a poll on if you were a member of Ducks Unlimited or Delta Waterfowl, or both or neither. And someone asked, and it wasn't a poll yet, and then we ended up turning it into a poll. And one thing we just do not let people go after one another. We don't let any kind of nonsense go on in there. So it's either it gets deleted or you get blocked or a combination of the two. But just kind of got my fuel tank on the moderation this week got pretty empty, and it got to the point where I just started deleting a lot of stuff. So It was, it's funny because it's very tough to moderate that group because I know how passionate hunters are. I know how passionate outdoorsmen are, and I expect every conversation to be passionate. So as long as it's in that realm and there's no like personal attacks, and we try not to we try not to get into politics too much. And if it kind of stays that path, I kind of let it go for a little bit, but it's very difficult when you have close to 3,000 people commenting on one single thread. But it's a great place, great resource, and a lot of great guys and girls in there. We got a lot of women stepping up and commenting and letting their, find their own little niche in there too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, let me just spend a minute here talking about that. We talk a lot about that group because it's a place that you can go there and ask questions as a new hunter and not be ridiculed by people that you see all over the internet. And I know I'm not breaking any news here. There's a bunch of internet tough guys out there that, just make it really hard to do anything constructive in these mediums, in these situations. And we've pretty much made a hard line that we're not going to allow that to go on in that group. And it's a fine line because we really struggle with what do you delete and what do you allow? And particularly when politics come up, it's really hard because there's discussions that are worth having and they need to be had, but it only takes one person in there to not be an adult and it ruins it and it completely derails it. And just so that everyone's clear, because I don't want people to get frustrated with this, we're not against people having their own political views against, on whatever topic it is that's being discussed. Views on gear, views on all of these things. That's why we have these discussions, because we can learn from other people. But, particularly with what we've seen so much recently in the news about gun control and the tragedies that have taken place, it's really hard for people to have a civilized conversation about guns particularly. And it's no wonder that the country is so divided on so many things, because everyone just takes that hard line, divisive position against anyone that doesn't agree with them. And all I would say is this, you can be a Democrat, liberal, whatever you want to call that side of the aisle, and you can be a duck hunter, and you could want to hunt with the semi-auto shotgun, and you could also be against AR-15s, right? I mean, that's your right. On the other side of the coin, you can be a Republican or a conservative and fully support the Second Amendment and ownership of all guns and no gun control whatsoever. Whatever side of the aisle you sit on, it doesn't mean that you can't listen to the other person, respect them for their opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but treat them with the respect that you would want to be treated with in the sense that, our country is founded on the principle that you can have differing opinions. That's the beauty of it here. It's not like a dictator is going to take you out back and deal with you if you don't agree with what the regime, believes. And that's why we've gotten to this point where it's so divisive, where you literally can't have a conversation where, because of what happened in a school shooting, we're now seeing legislation be introduced that could impact us as duck hunters and semi-automatic shotguns that we use for hunting purposes. We can't even discuss that because immediately it becomes divisive amongst the two. So I don't know what the ultimate end goal is here. I mean, those are just conversations that are obviously worth having and need to be had. But unfortunately, when they can't be had because people don't want to approach them in a civilized and adult manner, whichever side has the authority or the louder voice is going to win. And that's the way things have been done for a long time around here. It's like you see it, the political movements. So I don't know ultimately what the end goal is, but the point that I made on the group today was, instead of taking however much time you spend making a post in our group about gun control or your position against it, take that time and write your local and federal elected officials for your jurisdiction, because those are the people that have influence over the decisions that are going to affect you as far as gun control or lack thereof. So, you're posting to a group of 3,000 duck hunters. The majority of the people in there are probably conservative in nature and don't want their gun rights to be infringed. that's a guess that I'm making, but based on the comments in there, most of the time that seems kind of where people lie. You're not gaining any ground by preaching to people that already agree with you. There might be one or two that don't, and then you sit there and fight with that person. But the fight really needs to be held on Capitol Hill, or, you know, with the legislators at your local level that could pass legislation that could impact that. I'm not passing any laws that are going to impact anybody, right? So it just amazes me how much time people spend fighting over that stuff on social media when, you know, the fight happens with your delegates and in your House and Senate people at the state and federal level.
Yeah, and that's going to the group. That's one thing I do love about those guys. Like, we've made it clear, if you attack someone, you're out of the group. Like, it's just not gonna fly. And in a weird way, it's kind of just, it's fun to moderate that, and you can feel the tension, and it's just a nice place to be because the guys and girls have been very respectful when they could cross the line very easily.
Yeah, and time and time again, we get comments on that particular fact that this group, particular people, tend to mind their P's and Q's much more than some of these other places that you see.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're growing so much. People are inviting their friends, and it's a great place to talk. And I said that before. It's not like you're talking behind a keyboard. It's like you're talking around a campfire, and it is a really great group of people.
Yep.
And I don't know. It is a very divisive world, and I don't know. It's tough to stay on social media and see all the hate and everything. And I think one thing that good can come out of this is just straight education and seeing the gun talk that is going on in there, and some of the guys admitting, you know what, even my wife, when I talk about my duck gun, she doesn't understand that that's a semi-automatic weapon, and that actually could go into this gun bill, which it is in that bill that's going through right now. But there are some rights that are on the table in this automatic rifle bill going through that can definitely affect what we do, which it's kind of crazy to even think about. Like, we could have no automatic or semi-automatic weapons. And then the whole just Armalite versus assault rifle talk. Education is a huge factor, and it's better to sit there and actually inform people what things mean and what things do versus just calling them names. Like, what 30-year-old would sit there and just 30, 40, 50-year-old sit there and just straight berate someone and call them names if they were talking man to man? Like, I don't understand that. Why do you do it behind a keyboard? Like, just talk to people.
Right. Well,
it's not very difficult.
Right. And the thing that I always try to keep in mind is every single person is entitled to their opinion, and they will have their opinion. If they're on the fence at all about a particular issue, and you've engaged them in a certain manner where it's a put off to them, you might make their mind up immediately based on just your interaction, right? And you see this all the time. I mean, the media clearly is not interested in learning what an assault rifle is. They're not interested. An AR-15 does not stand for assault rifle, but they're not interested in learning what it actually stands for because they think it's semantics, right? And it's, right. it's not an important detail. So if you attack somebody over that continuously, do you think that's going to like win them to your side and like convince them that, oh yeah, like maybe I should? Like, they're just going to immediately tone you out and you're going to be worse off. So I think just with everything in today's day and age, you have to be tactful with the way you approach things. And, I don't really want to spend any more time on this because it's more than what I like to in general. But what I will say is we will have a smaller group with less people that can have adult conversations and have a larger group with a bunch of people that are a bunch of idiots. So
amen.
That's our philosophy, and it'll stay that way. So whether we ever grow to like 70,000 people in there, I don't know. But if we get to 70,000, it's going to all be people that can have an adult conversation without, being an idiot.
I do I do have to tell you, so it's funny because the guy that I work next to in the office, he is straight Republican, gun owner, married to straight, liberal Democrat,
wow.
anti-gun. I wouldn't say anti-gun. And it's honestly like, I commend him all the time. I'm like, I don't understand how you guys work because like the basis of each side is so polarizing. I was like, do you guys just not talk about things or like what is it? And he's like, well, just we've been together a long time and it works. And he said, when I get around her family, we don't talk politics and that's the way it is. So, but anyway, so my boss, you know him well.
Yep.
Down, I can hear pretty much everything he says all day long. And he's talking to a buddy from his college ball days. And he's like, so what the hell is a guy with a handgun gonna do if the other guy has a 7mm? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, in any close quarter combat, I would definitely rather have a handgun. Like, thinking about just, if you're gonna shoulder a 7mm and try and swing it around, just a little cover and move, it's gonna be over pretty quick. But anyway, so I thought that was funny. I thought you'd enjoy that one. But as far as knowing the, just guns in general and general knowledge about it, it's not that general. It's not common. People don't know guns. They don't know weapons. They don't know what they're used for. And to assume that people do when you're in I wouldn't say argument, but in a conversation with them is a grave mistake. So without offending people, try and inform them on what they are actually thinking, what they are voting on, and I think that would help in the long run for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think we should leave it there because there's, like I said in the group today, there's a million places you can talk about gun control. I'm not really interested in having the conversation here. So anyway, let's transition because we're like 20 some minutes into the show and we haven't really talked about duck hunting much, or what we actually said we were going to talk about much. But I do want to take a second really quickly. We've had a lot of guys in the group, particularly filling out iTunes reviews for us, which is awesome. iTunes, for some reason, is a weird deal because no one actually knows like the secret sauce in their algorithms, like how you get ranked. But for a long time, we would sit, in the top 20 as a regular. And then for some reason, not long ago, it seems like they changed some stuff up and we dropped down a good bit and we were hovering down there. And there was a big push through the group to fill out reviews and help us out. And it did. We've jumped right back up. Last I checked, in the iTunes rankings. So we do appreciate everybody that's done that. And if you haven't done it, please check out iTunes. Even if you don't listen to iTunes, even if iTunes isn't your particular podcast outlet, iTunes is the biggest boy on the block when it comes to podcasts. Like 90% of our downloads come through iTunes. So why it's important is because when you get those reviews, it bumps you up in the ratings and it gets you featured locations in iTunes. And the reason why we care about that, the number one reason is some dude that's, thinking about getting into duck hunting or is searching a deer hunting podcast maybe or something outdoors related and maybe a duck hunter or interested in duck hunting may stumble across our show and give us a listen, and maybe it'll help that guy or gal get started and get into the sport. So that's really all it is. We're just trying to get more people to find the show to hopefully be able to help them answer questions, unlock the mystery, whatever it is. Cause that's really, and kind of getting into how the show started a little bit. That's why we started. I mean, we started this show. The number one reason for it was to help those guys that don't have a mentor, someone who's never duck hunted before in their life, but wants to give it a shot and has no one that they can go to locally to help them out. That steep learning curve that we've all gone through. That's the number one person that we're reaching out to, trying to recruit new people and help them get started. Yeah.
And that's what we say that in the group too. We we started to bridge the gap. We want to bridge the gap between the old timers and the new timers. And it's funny because kind of as a joke, to get into our group now, you have to answer 3 questions. One being, do you hunt waterfowl? 2 being, can you hold an adult conversation in an online forum? And 3 is, do you like minivans? And that's obviously a joke because I own a minivan. Well, my wife drives it, but I am co-owner.
You own it.
I own it. So, but the amount, it's funny because here's a little breakdown of the answers. A lot of people, when they ask if they hunt waterfowl, say yes. There's a lot of yes, no's, like no to the do you like minivans? There's some that are just like, if the time is right, then yes, I like a minivan. But really the breakdown that is super cool is how many people are saying, I just started waterfowl hunting, or I have not yet waterfowl hunted, but I was told to look up your podcast. And these are true answers that I get to review to let people in. And I think that it's just awesome because all you hear about is, hunter numbers are down, blah, 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 blah. That's all you hear. And to see people say, I haven't hunted yet, but I was recommended this podcast to listen to. And that's our goal. That was our goal to start, put something out there, bridge the gap, get people hunting to a level of a 5 or 10 year or 15 year veteran rather than a guy that goes and just has no idea what they're doing. Listen to 70 some podcasts and you'll be there. I think that we've done a great job, and a little pat on the back there, but to see so many thank yous and emails and messages, it's just really, really cool to see.
Yeah, I think everybody can relate to some extent, because even if waterfowl isn't the thing that you've gone through this with, you've definitely done something in your life where you weren't sure what you were doing and you leaned on somebody to help you out, whether that was you picked up golf or you started fishing, fly fishing, for example, tying flies, whatever it is. There's something in your life where you've had to turn to a buddy and say, or a family member and say, hey, that looks cool. Like, can you show me how to do that? Or can you help me out? I did, a lot of guys don't have that when it comes to waterfowl. I mean, I'm sure you can remember. I remember the first time I started sending you emails. I don't even think we were like really truly texting back then yet. I was like, hey man, I'm thinking about like doing some goose hunting. Like, you got any tips? It was just kind of like, whatever. And then, I started just trying it and I was like, yeah, I'm all in. And then it was like off to the races, just learning everything that I could find. So hopefully we're that outlet for a lot of people. And, with the forum though, you get to bring that new hunter with the old, the guy that's been around doing it for a while and mesh them and allow everybody to learn, from one another. And, it's been working out good. So I feel like our goal that we originally set out to, we've been working pretty closely towards that.
There were so many questions about decoy setups, goose decoy setups. Just
it's important.
There'd be like 9 questions. I think 7 of them were like, what do you set them up like this? Or do you put some in the pocket? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with this? And yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I can remember when I started, other than those conversations, I would literally spend hours on goose hunting chat, that talk forum. And it doesn't get a ton of traffic. So a lot of the things that I was reading were old, but I would go back and read. I would just read these threads as much as I could to learn about decoy setup and just blinds and calls and just all the stuff that goes into it. And my head was just spinning. I'm like, holy crap. Like, there is so much that I don't know about this that makes this challenging. But, fortunately enough, I wasn't deterred by that. And for me, I started waterfowl hunting because I wanted a reason to extend the season. I was an archery hunter, big game, deer, turkey. But when deer season ended in January, I was like, I'm not really ready to be done with the outdoors. And there's nothing I could do. The weather sucks for a lot of the outdoor sports I was doing at the time. I was playing more golf and things like that. So I was like, let me just see what else I can do. And I came into waterfowl hunting and that's where it started. And now I do, 90% of my time in the outdoors is spent waterfowl hunting. So it's been a pleasant transition for me, obviously.
Yeah, you did a straight 180 switch there. So do you want to go ahead and talk about how we got started, what we started doing?
Yeah. So I guess, was it like late 2010 that the idea first came up? Maybe? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I remember being home. For me, I drove home to Pennsylvania, and maybe for the holidays or something. And you and I went spotting, I think it was. We were driving around, looking for deer and stuff, and we're just shooting the breeze. And I think I kind of pitched you on the idea of it wasn't HP Outdoors at the time, but it was just a company that did, I think at first we started talking about like doing products, like, lanyards and all that kind of stuff. And I know at that time you were interested in getting into calls. And this was like literally within months, if not weeks, before like the Duck Dynasty thing kind of kicked off. So the whole call making craze just went bonkers after Duck Dynasty came out and sort of got in mainstream. So we kind of started down that path, and we were doing lanyards for a while, and we made a run of custom goose calls and we're turning some stuff, and, did a couple shows and had some, we moved the inventory that we had and stuff, but I can't remember exactly what it was that triggered it. But at some point along the way, sort of podcasting kind of came into the fold. And for me, it was, I like to listen to podcasts when I work out, whether I'm running or lifting. I listen to podcasts because for me, when I listen to music, I tend to just kind of tune it out. Like I don't really engage with the music. It's just sort of something that I hear as I'm doing what I'm doing. Where when I'm listening to a podcast, I tend to more engage and become like, immersed in the conversation. It's more of a personal connection for me, and it just makes the time go by faster. So I like to listen to them when I'm working out. And I was looking for something waterfowl related, because that's at the time that I was really, still researching very heavily into waterfowl hunting and learning as much as I could and all this stuff. But I couldn't find anything out there. There was nothing virtually out there. And, that's sort of what took me down that path. But I want to regress just 1 second, because I remember something very vividly from that night that we were spotting. And I forgot to mention this. I asked you about a company or something, at that night. We didn't know what that was yet at the time, but I just remember you saying to me when I pitched it to you, you were like, I'm all in, man. Like it was something like, I'm all in. I'm with you all the way. Whatever you want, whatever you want to do, let's do it. It was something along those lines. And I was like, man, that was pretty cool. And then there was another ground rule that we laid pretty early on that served us well. And I think a lot of people make this mistake when they try to form partnerships and things. You and I have been friends for a long time, and, we made a pact with each other that throughout this process, when it came to the company and the show and the things that we were doing, we had 100% honesty with each other all the time. So if I'm doing something you don't like, you tell me. If you're doing something if you're doing something that I don't like, I tell you. We have candid conversations about what we're doing, where we're going, the guests we have, the material that we put out. All of those things are completely candid, to the point where, if we hadn't set that expectation up front, like, there may be times when I'm worried about like damaging our friendship. But I think that served us well. And so it all started on a very solid foundation that's kind of helped us along the way, I think.
Yeah, I would say that is the best move, that if anyone is looking to do anything in business or anything, like if you can't be honest with one another, you might as well not go into it.
I would even say, honestly, I'd even say as a hunting buddy, like because you got hunting groups out there where they buy decoys together, boats, share a lot of equity, like a lot of resources go into things like this. And anytime you're with another dude or another person, like, you need to be able to have candid conversations sometimes about things. And if you don't, people get passive aggressive, and it gets like condescending, and it's just a nightmare waiting to happen.
Yeah. And if you, any kind of financial expert, you look at Dave Ramsey, look at, that other, whatever that millionaire guy is that buys business or
Warren
invests
Buffett?
in business and no,
The Prophet?
not billionaire, the Prophet. Yeah.
That's the guy, he bought Gander, right? His company bought Gander Mountain.
Yeah. And now he's like the Camping World or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, but they all say, do not go into partnerships. Don't do into, no kind of business like that. And it's because people aren't honest with each other. They don't trust each other. And I think having that role in place or that outlet of always being honest has made things never even get to the point of any kind of argument because nothing's hidden. It's either, hey, I don't like that. How strongly do you feel about that? Or, one way or another, or dude, I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's switch it up. And there's no mud, muck, anything, except I think I take too long doing our taxes. You get mad at me about that.
Yeah, time's
but besides
ticking,
that, which I need to get on that, but honestly, that's been a lifesaver for us, I think. And really, you're talking 2010 and we're into 2018 now. So that's a long run. That's a long run for two guys to be talking and going through different steps and really no big arguments.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
When did we release our first episode? Do you remember?
I will Google it.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll share another little story about that. So, all this research went into like what we needed to do to get the show on iTunes and publish it and editing and the gear and all that stuff, right? I can remember how nervous we were the first time we recorded. We had no idea what we're doing. Like I will not go back and listen to the first episode because I feel like I would just cringe the entire time.
Yep.
We were so nervous and it was so silly because I think I can remember after we put the first episode out, I would check those download stats every single day and it'd be like, I'd hit you up, oh dude, we had 20 downloads today. like literally nothing, but it was so cool to see, like to know that we were, people were listening to what we were putting out, even if it was a small number. And I think, there's always that fear of failure, regardless of what scale you're on, right? And we were obviously a very small scale, and even today, comparatively to like Joe Rogan and these guys, we're obviously much smaller than that. But anytime you put yourself out there, whether it be to go talk to a girl, or to apply for a job, or put yourself on YouTube, or you record a podcast, you put yourself out there, right? And you're putting yourself in a position to be judged by other people that don't know you and have no empathy for your situation. So if you suck, they don't care. They just know you as this guy that sucks, and you're putting out this product that's terrible. So that's a really scary thing. And I know for us, for me, that was a big thing to really overcome early on. And I can't remember. I can't tell you how long we've had conversations about you hating the sound of your voice. That was something that we discussed all the time. Cause that was kind of like your sticking point. Like that was your thing.
August 12th, 2014 was our first episode, and it was 38 minutes long. And then 15th. So we went almost a month, and then we started going every 2 weeks there for a bit. But yes, you brought it up. You're like, I think we should do a podcast. And I'm like, I don't listen to podcasts. I'm not really like into that. I don't know. Why would you want to do that? And then, oh, for sure. And then it got to the point where, you really wanted to do it, and I was still not wanting to do it. And I think that's kind of where you took over dude, listen, I'll take care of the editing. You just get on there and talk. And I'm like, And now we need to both do that. I need to get on board with the editing, and after so many years,
here we are, however many years later,
just haven't touched that. Just holding on for dear life. But yeah, man, that was. People ask that, how'd you get started? I'm like, well, Josh forced me into it because I hate my voice. I sound like a raspy old woman, and I just never wanted to do it. And like you said, I think subliminally, there was a fear of just the backlash maybe, and being worried about what people think. Cause you get, it's coming off of, we started the business as a call maker, essentially. And then there was just so much work that went into that, and actually making, not making the guts, but making the calls and polishing them. And it's just a ton of work. So here's a little shout out to all those custom call makers that make their own calls, not even their guts, but make their calls, especially duck calls. Those guys that do those duck calls, hand turned calls and hand cut tone boards. If you ever think about it, go and support those guys. The guys that do their own tone boards day after day, and that's how they support their family. That is a craft that is a lost art. And honestly, I bet that there aren't more than probably a dozen guys that can consistently make a tone board on a duck call at a very high level. And that's without a CNC machine. I'm saying time after time after time. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. So think about that next time you're buying a duck call. And there's a few out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Duck calls are really tough to make. And, one of the things that kind of, that we hit head on right off the bat was, we got that, oh, you're like that duck, you like those Duck Dynasty guys, right? I mean, cause if I remember it correctly, it was like right then is when that show came out. I mean, it was like bang, bang kind of as we got into it. So it was almost uphill from the beginning because people just, that was up, and then a lot of call makers. And then further, to your point, hand making duck calls is incredibly difficult. A lot of custom caller makers out there are turning barrels and buying echo inserts. I mean, let's just be honest. That's what they're doing, calling them custom calls. There's nothing custom about that, but it doesn't mean it's not fun turning barrels and, doing that and that's all cool. But I mean, that's not custom duck call making. The guys that do it, they should be commended. It's a tough gig. And we, fortunately enough, before we sunk too much resource into it, we recognized that it was not for us. And I can absolutely say with 100% certainty that when we had that discussion that night in your truck and when we went deer spotting, did I ever think that podcasting would be sort of our core business?
No, nope, not at all.
So it's funny
how you're going to make me talk. Yeah. That was never brought up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how that worked and what it's turned into. And now, podcasting in general is a huge thing, and it's ballooned. And, oddly enough, the waterfowl segment of podcasting has not grown as much as what we've seen in the big game. The Western hunters got all kinds of podcasts out there, archery, things like that. But the waterfowl sector of that has not really grown that much. For whatever
I'll tell you
reason.
what, there's been like, since we started, there's been like 6 or 7 that started, and, there's 1 or 2 that might still be going. And even it's crazy because you look at the whitetail, there's a ton of them. Western, there's a ton of them. We have good friends that enjoy the trad life, and they're doing very, very well. And
the Push traditional archery podcast. If you're into traditional bow hunting, check those guys out. Matt and Tim over there, good dudes.
Yeah, and that's we gave them a lot of tips and starting points, and they just freaking took off with it and have a ton of good sponsors and whatnot. So it's cool to watch them. But yeah, we're still over here in the waterfowl world, just kind of doing our thing. So hopefully getting on the same level as some of those Western guys. And, we hold our own in the rankings. So I think it shows a little bit there.
Yeah. And I would just say to anybody out there, if you're thinking about doing something, just do it, right? I mean, that's the thing. 'Cause like, I look at this show, I have a blast doing this. Yeah, it's a pain in the neck editing. Pain in the neck. And I hate it. But I would do this show if no one downloaded it, because it gives me an opportunity to talk to one of my best friends more often about something that I love to do. And, as we all know, as you get older and you lose touch with people throughout your life, there's common threads that you hold on to that keep you together with certain people, and duck hunting has helped us do that. Even though we live 5 hours apart, duck hunting has allowed us to stay in contact every day virtually through this podcast and other mechanisms. So, if there's something out there that you want to do and you think it'd be fun, chase it, man. It's not all about, worrying about what other people think sometimes. It's doing something that you love and having fun. So whatever that is in your life, if there's something that's holding you back, just turn the page and go with it. That's all I can say, because we've had an absolute blast doing this show over the last couple of years. We've got to talk to some awesome people, met some great people. We're looking to do even more of that. This, as the future comes, we're looking to expand that even more and just meet more people like us that are doing the same things we do, but just doing it all over the country. And it's going to be such an awesome journey to just to get out there and see all that and bring it to everybody through this show. I mean, we've already talked about it. We've gotten tons of feedback that people are looking forward to this. Like, we are going to do an episode from a goose blind in the field. I mean, we're literally going to be...
People are mad. Yeah, people are mad because they have to wait all season for it.
Yeah, like, we're going to be laying beside each other, and if birds are coming in, you're going to hear us working calls. And if they flare, you're going to hear Dan cuss. And if they, come in, you're going to hear us shoot. And there might be some periods of just hunting going on and not talking. I don't know, but it's going to be authentic and it's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to doing that for sure.
Yeah, man, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. And looking back, like, if you'd have told me when we were sitting in the truck, and gosh, better mark that time.
I got it.
Cut that out. Oh boy. Anyway, if you'd have told me, like, dude, in a couple years you're going to be heading up to Maine with some random guys that you have no idea who they are, heading out in the ocean and killing some birds, like, it's the furthest thing that, like you said, if you want to do something, do it. You never know where it's going to end up. And it's a ton of fun. It is a ton of fun to sit here and chat.
Yep.
So
I don't know what jarred my memory when you said that, but I want to make sure I come back to it. Before we end this episode, we need to talk about them potentially lowering the mallard limits here for us in the Atlantic Flyway. But I just want to wrap up sort of how we started in that little history lesson on the show. It's been as we've already said, we couldn't have forecasted how this was going to go to this point, and we can't forecast how it's going to go from this point forward. But all I can say is that we're going to have fun doing it, and we appreciate everybody that gives us support, whether it's interaction with us in the Facebook group, clicking that like button on our Facebook page, giving us an iTunes reviews. Everything is helpful and is appreciated by us. We've got some things that are going to be coming out here in the next couple of weeks, we're hoping, that are going to be awesome. And we're just looking to expound and really build this thing to what it can be. And that's why we've gone back to the weekly episodes. And that's why at almost 11 o'clock on Friday night, we're sitting here doing this, because one, it's fun. And two, we hope it's a resource for everybody out there. So that's it, man. That's pretty much the history of how we've come to be. And
I do want to, I was going to say, for one last little history shot, and it's not of, I guess it's kind of more of on my side, but the first goose hunt that I can remember going on, and it's, well, I guess I wouldn't say going on, because my dad used to waterfowl hunt a lot, and he had a lot of waterfowl guns and camo and everything, and I have never once waterfowl hunted with him. For some reason, like when my sister started sports, and when we got into sports, he got out of waterfowl hunting. He stayed in archery hunting and rifle hunting for whitetail, but got out of waterfowl hunting. It was just like that extra thing. So it's kind of my goal this year is to get him back in a blind in the field, and he's semi-retired now. He retired on a Friday. No, he retired on a Monday, and he was back to work part-time on the following Monday because they wanted him back so bad. So he's back part-time right now, but he said come fall he's done and he'll start back after hunting season. So he's expecting to take the entire hunting season off, but I really, really want to get him back. But anyway, I remember going out like scouting with him for waterfowl, but I never went on a waterfowl hunt with him. But my first waterfowl hunt was I had to be like 7th grade, I think. And I went with Tony Stewart, who we hunt with quite often. He usually guides me to a turkey kill every year, at least one. Just a great guy. One of the best whitetail hunters I know. And it's awesome watching him just figure it out and go kill monsters every year. But anyway, so he owns a farm close to here, and they left, I think there were like four rows of corn, and it was about, I want to say 15 feet long. And it must have been like junior high basketball practice. But we had some older guys there that they had to, what do you have to be 18 to take younger kids?
Yeah.
Because I was definitely underage. So we went out, and there must have been some seniors on a basketball team. And we went out in this little bit of corn with white sheets. You know, you always hear about people with white sheets going out. Mm-hmm. We took white sheets, sat on 5-gallon buckets, turned them upside down, and it was snowing so hard. Like I had, my sled riding stuff on. I didn't have any kind of waterfowl gear. Didn't know what I was doing. But man, did we just blast some geese. And that was something like, I think there were like 6 or 7 of us. So birds would come in and just, bow, 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 just everyone unloading. Great time. And I remember there were some cripples that ended up like floating for a couple 100 yards. Like he has some of the bigger fields around here. So we were chasing, and yes, it's, you'd never try to do that, but it happens. So we were running them down, and it's just something that I will never forget. White sheets, a couple rows of corn, and it worked. So for those guys that have never been out or want to go out or just starting to go out, like it doesn't matter if you have the best gear. It doesn't matter if you have the most experience. Go out, grab a buddy, try it out, throw out. I know we didn't have more than a dozen decoys, and get out there and just try it. Go and have fun. Talk BS with your buddies, and it's worth it for sure.
Yeah, since we're telling story time, I can remember my first waterfowl hunt like it was yesterday. I was going to the Eastern Shore, Maryland with a contractor that worked for me. And he was like, hey, I had a buddy just drop out. I got an empty, seat in the blind. You want to come? And I was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. So, I'm up there in my deer hunting gear. I didn't have waders. I borrowed somebody's. I had nothing, right? Took my turkey shotgun, whatever. And I just remember it was a flooded corn impoundment that that was with the guy, and that he had planted and everything. So we get out there, and I'm sitting in the blind, and I remember the pre dawn sound of the Mojo wings flapping in the spread. Like I can just remember that sound that it makes, you know, just shaking a little bit on the pole, just the quiet, like that sound just resonates so true in my brain right now. And as I'm sitting there and the daylight's just starting to crack, I hear this noise and I was like, what is that? And I look up and a drake, wood duck comes into the hole and lands before we can even, like, you know, before anybody can shoot. It's in the water. And I can remember just seeing it in the decoys and like processing that image in my head is like something that I looked at on the computer and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that's a wood duck, right? And I made that connection like immediately. And then it got up, you know, it got up, and when it was flying away, we shot it. And then I think we shot like 7 or 8 ducks that day. Not a great day for like 4 dudes, right? I mean, it was just whatever. But that first duck, it took one duck to work that spread to hook me. That's literally all it took. It was just that first one coming in. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Like I'm sitting here, you know, talking with buddies, you know, not being super quiet. I didn't have to worry about like washing my clothes this morning, not stinking, you know, for deer, you know, scent reasons, all that. Like, this is awesome. And from then on, man, it was on. I came home and I started looking for spots to goose hunt because that's what we had here. And my first spread was I made my own goose pattern and I traced it out of a Tyvek material because I was working construction at the time. So we had some extra Tyvek on the not Tyvek, not the house wrap stuff, but something a little more rigid. But I traced them and I cut them out and I used extra pieces of shoe molding that we had laying around the job site. And I cut them to length and I sharpened one end and I punched holes in these decoys and zip tied them to that. And I had like 18 homemade Canada silhouettes with my first spread. And I took them things out and I hunted over them. I never killed a bird over any of them, but I spent a lot of time making those. And, yeah, I mean, like I said, the rest is history after that. You know, it was on. So pretty cool. I'm sure a lot of guys are, you know, probably listening to this thinking about when their first hunt was. And I'm sure it probably rings true in their brain just as well as these ones do in ours, you know?
Yes, sir. It's fun to think back about, you know, all the fun hunts and not so fun hunts, but fun times that you've had in the field and people you miss and all that. So
let me tell you something. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm going to have a tough time this upcoming duck season. You know, a guy you went through school with and a guy I've been, you know, blessed to know the last, I don't even know however many years, pretty much as long as you and I have. Much. Yeah. You know, when one of my best hunting buddies moved over across the pond, and it might be a 3-year stint, but man, he claims he might be coming back, but that's just tough. It's tough. And I know I'll have him back. So it's not like the worst deal, but it's a tough situation. I'm just not used to it. I wasn't prepared as I thought I was for that to happen.
Well, you know, it's funny because for guys like us, a lot of things that we, you know, build in our lives are around hunting in the outdoors, you know, and with family and close friends. And those are the memories you hold on to. And I'll be honest with you, this week, man, I've been working my tail off, a lot of late nights and stuff. And, you know, the whole saying that they, you know, say was just resonating so true in my head was like, you know, no one on their deathbed ever says, I wish I would have worked more. Right. And I'm thinking that, and I'm like, daggone, man, like, you know, the time that I'm truly happy, where it's like just true happiness, is, you know, spending time with my wife and son and spending time with family and friends in the outdoors. Like that's it for me. Right. And sometimes, you know, it's just one of those things that you wrestle with. It's like, I spend so much time of my life working that I just wish I could find a way to find more time doing what truly makes you happy, because I can promise you I'll be just like everybody else on my deathbed. I will not be saying I wish I worked more. right? It'll be other things that I wish I was able to do more. So, you know, cherishing those times that we get is so important, and maximizing those opportunities. That's why I love it. You know, the guys in our group that we talked to on Facebook, there's so many guys in there that are in it for the right reasons. And we got into this a little bit about social media recently, but so many guys in that group will say, I've got no problem going out and not pulling the trigger. I have a great time every time I'm out. As soon as I'm setting decoys, I'm happy. And I'm the exact way, because we were talking about, you know, pile pictures and hero pictures and what that's doing to duck hunting, and as a perspective from the outside and things like that. And I completely agree. Hero pictures are getting out of control, in my opinion. You know, for me, one of the things that I hate seeing, I don't hold anybody, you know, I don't hold it personally against anybody that does it. I just don't do it. I think it's in poor taste, is when you show a pile of birds formed in like a number. I think I've said this on the show before. You see it a lot in snow goose season, right? Someone shoots like 150 birds and they lay out the pile in the number 150. To me, like, that can't communicate any more clearly that you are literally just about killing those birds. Like, that's just what it feels like to someone who looks at that picture, right? I mean, I get it that, you know, there's probably more going on to that, obviously, than a hunt. But like, from someone who just sees that picture in a vacuum, that's what they take away. And, you know, it just erodes the credibility that we have as outdoorsmen. But anyway, to the further point of this piece here is that, you know, as soon as I'm outside and I'm like loading up my truck and I'm going, like, I'm happy, right? You know, and setting decoys and stuff like that. I'll do it every day. I like pulling the trigger, but I don't care. I mean, I like watching birds work. I like hanging out with my buddies. Like, I just don't care that much if I'm piling up birds or not. And, yeah, I'll probably never get over that.
I was going to say, one thing I was driving. So like I said today, we woke up with a foot of snow in our driveway. So I wake up, I plowed my driveway, drove over to my dad's and plowed the road, because with my plow up, because it was so high on the road, they hadn't plowed yet. Go over, plow his driveway, and then drove into Meadville, took my wife in, drove back to work, drove in at lunchtime, back to Meadville, got my hair cut, drove back to work, and then I went and picked up the kids and then drove in and picked her up again. So I did a lot of driving today. And I was thinking, I was like, you know what? And going back to the listeners group and those guys up in Maine, it's really, we're not so different. You know what I mean? Like, to be able to go and meet these guys that met on a listeners group and started talking, started playing and stuff. And literally, I mean, the first 15 minutes after I met Scott and Ryan in person, who've been on our podcast before, shake hands, and we get in a canoe in negative 15 degree weather, negative 40, negative 50 wind chill, go out into the ocean with them. Like, in 15 minutes, I put my life in their hands. And I was thinking about that today. I'm like, you know what? If they came here and that was me and I felt comfortable doing it and I knew the situation, like, I would hope that they would trust me to have them in that same situation. But it was really just resonating with me today that no matter if you're in Maine or in Texas or in Florida or in Virginia, Montana, wherever, like, we have a lot of the same attributes and a lot of the same passions. And that's where I think it's super cool. And that's part of the group. Like, we're kind of cut from the same cloth when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's like that, what's that Brantley Gilbert song or whatever? Country's countrywide or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same with duck hunters. I mean, there's all duck hunters kind of have that same chemistry in their blood that sort of, drives us all, I think. And, I think all outdoorsmen share a lot of the same characteristics and qualities, but to me at least, there feels like there's something different when it comes to duck hunters versus deer hunters and mule deer hunters and things like that. It just seems like a lot of waterfowl hunters I know, that's like all they do, right? But you see a lot of people, they hang their bow up for deer season and then they head to the waterfowl woods or waterfowl blind, whatever. It's just, there's certain people that kind of like me, I just gravitate towards it. And I don't live in, a high, populated flyway with ducks and things like that. But if I go out and shoot 3 honkers, I'm good. Like I'm good. Like that's a great day spent. I've had days where I've limited out, tons of days where I've limited out. Never once did I have a hunt where I didn't limit out and didn't have fun. It's always fun, so.
Could always be worse. But now, talking about the Atlantic Flyway, let's talk about how it could be worse than what it is currently.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, man. You see this come out about them wanting to lower the limit of mallards. As soon as I saw it, I was like, cool. I don't care. I don't hardly shoot mallards anyway.
Right.
Other than divers, right? When we get good pushes of divers, our waterfowl time is spent chasing honkers because that's what we have. And at the end of the day, you have to hunt the birds you have. And, we have Canada geese. That's what we get. So that's what we spend 90% of our time hunting. Well, when we get cold weather, we get awesome diver shoots, but that is such a crapshoot. If you want to have consistent opportunities to harvest birds, you gotta target what you got. And we got Canada geese here.
Yeah. And you're a big diver duck hunter too, which when I first saw the mallard numbers go from 4 to 2, or thinking about it, and for anyone listening, this is for the 2019-2020 season, so not this 18-19, correct? Am I right in saying that?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
Starting in 2019. Yeah, is what they're proposing. I'm reading it right now. Okay. But so they keep doing these adaptive harvest management, like with the pintail, where they went from 2 to 1, and the bluebills. Bluebills are back up to 2, right?
Bluebills were 2 last year. At? They were at 2 last year.
They were at 2.
This past season, yeah.
So anyway, what they're proposing, the Atlantic Flyway biologists are currently working on a new multi-stock adaptive harvest management AHM model that will include mallards and 4 additional species, including green-winged teal, wood duck, ringneck duck, and goldeneye. So they are thinking that, and it says consequently, hunters will likely retain a liberal or moderate season packages at 60 to 45 days. So not only are we looking at 4 mallards to 2 mallards, but we're also looking at a possible cut from 60 to 45 days, which is much more bothersome than the mallards getting cut from 4 to 2, because like you said, we just don't get that many mallards anyways. So
60 to 45 days. So they're saying limiting the season, or allowing it to be a range that the states, because that's kind of how it works, right? Like the framework is set, and then the states can kind of manage it how they want within those frameworks. That's right.
Correct. Yeah. So who knows how that's going to be? Well, they say modeling suggests that, and this is something that I don't get too. Modeling suggests that reducing the bag in this manner will reduce harvest by 25% and achieve a sustainable harvest level. So so here's some numbers for you. From 2017 survey, mallards were down 11% from 2016. They're still 34% over the long-term average. So that means they dropped from 11.7 million to 10.488 million. And if you're looking from like 2000, it makes me think a little bit, because modeling suggests that reducing the bag in this manner will reduce harvest by 25% and achieve a sustainable harvest level. How? We're still over we're 34% over long-term average. And if they really say that hunting doesn't make that big of an impact, I just don't get where these numbers jive.
It's hard to say, man. I'm trying to think this through as you're saying that. How do they calculate the long-term average? What does that number mean? Like, what's long-term? Is
That's
that 10 years, 20 years? Like, what is that? 30 years?
Let me see here.
Because depending on how they calculate that, as duck numbers rise, the long-term average will also rise, right? So, because you'll be putting more higher numbers into the average, obviously. So that will drive up the median or mean or whatever the hell the, math people stuff is. Anyway, it's going to drive that number higher as an average when, for a long period of time, it was at one level and it'll be changed over time. I don't know how harvesting half the amount of, half the bag limit, right? Because we can kill 4 now. So they're saying to drop it to 2. So cutting the bag limit by half would drop the harvest by 25% is what they're saying.
Yeah. And then, I mean, is that so you can still shoot 2 hens? Are they trying to differentiate between hens and drakes or what? I don't know. I guess there's still a lot of questions out.
I've seen a lot of a lot of people suggest that not killing hens doesn't have as big of an impact either.
Right. And they also say that hunters don't impact a population at all. So, but now they're cutting it because they're playing with it. And now they are saying that a lot has to do with the drought, nesting areas, predation, stuff like that. But,
well, yeah, I mean, that's got to be the explanation, because if hunters aren't impacting the population, then that's telling you that their recruitment or whatever of new hatchlings in the spring is equal to or greater than what hunters are harvesting each year. Right?
Yep.
So if they're hatching fewer, then I guess at a certain level, hunters would start to have a impact on the harvest, on the overall population numbers. So maybe that's part of what's going on. I'm not really sure. Where I hunt, I don't see a ton of mallards anyway. There's pockets of them, but I don't see a ton. I think this is going to more greatly impact the guys up in Jersey, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, things that, those areas that get some decent pushes of mallards. For me, probably won't change what I'm doing most of the time.
Yeah. And we don't even, we're seeing a lot more, black ducks and, other birds rather than mallards. So a lot of wood ducks and some teal staying around rather than the mallards. So it didn't matter. It didn't bother me too much to hear about that, like you said too. But when you're cutting it from 60 to 45 days,
that's worrisome, because, my bigger issue with that is, again, we got Sunday hunting here like 2 or 3 years ago. You don't have Sunday hunting. So as you're going to find out, and as you're finding out, as your kids get older and they get more active, your Saturdays quickly get cannibalized by kids' activities, right?
Yep.
And if you work a full-time job, or at least a job that prevents you from getting out during the week much, you're pretty much left for me, I hunt Sundays. That's pretty much the only time I get to hunt, unless I'm taking vacation and things of that nature. So on a regular basis, I only get to hunt Sundays. So if you condense that time even more, the opportunities become less. And where it really becomes problematic is when you worry about recruitment numbers and getting more hunters into the field. Making that window even smaller makes it just that much harder for people to get out, including new hunters. So you're kind of doing yourself some damage there. And also you get away like the guy who, I get out like a couple times a year. I can't shoot as many mallards now. The season's shorter. Maybe it's just not worth it. So now that guy's not buying a duck stamp. he's not putting his money into the, into the pot that goes back into, programs that hopefully help foster more duck populations. So it's sort of a cycle there that you got to kind of weigh and sort of found that balance, because we all buy hunting licenses that fuel all these programs because it's money well spent for us. There's a value there. If you depreciate that value too much, people aren't going to want to spend the money to buy the licenses that are required. So you got to weigh that all out, I guess.
Yeah, we need to figure out, I don't know.
Well, and I think the other thing to keep in mind too is, not that I like to have blind faith in anything, but the data sort of is on their side in the sense that we've gotten to this place where our duck numbers are strong, under the certain management practices. And it wasn't that long ago where the goose season was shut off in Eastern Shore, Maryland, yep. and then it was one bird, and now it's two. And, that wasn't that long ago. So
I've never seen so many geese in my life as driving through Eastern Shore, Maryland. And they're like, the geese haven't shown up yet. I'm like, I just saw like 1.7 million on a ride in here. Like, what are you talking about? There's no geese.
Right.
Yeah, they're not here yet. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I think it's a situation where I'd rather be on the conservative end of that call and err on the side of caution for a season and reevaluate, right? I mean, that's the thing. These seasons can change, as we've seen with pintails and black ducks and canvasbacks and the bluebills. They change them frequently. And again, as management of the resource, hopefully we're seeing them act on the best, in the best of intentions for the hunters and the game that we pursue.
Yes, sir.
So we've talked about an hour and 15 minutes or so about a lot of stuff, not a lot of which had to do with duck hunting really, but anything else you want to cover here before we sort of wrap it up?
No, man, I thought it was good. And like I said, I think just this week I was surprised to see how many people wanted to know how we got started, kind of our background. A lot of people don't know that we played baseball together in high school, summer ball, and then kind of during college. I mean, we kept in touch a little bit, but mostly on like a Christmas break or something like that. And then after college is when we, our relationship really started to flourish. but yeah, people.
That's when we took it to the next level. If
that's when
I do say so.
We went all in. So, yeah, people want to know. They're asking, and I thought it was a good idea. You brought up let's do a little history thing, and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Cool. So there was some. I haven't seen it in the group yet. I haven't been checking it, but I saw there was a little discussion about possibly a Facebook Live episode this evening. How you feeling about that?
They were asking, will we go Facebook Live? I think everyone's sleeping here, so.
All right, well, maybe we can do that. I haven't gone on there with you yet, so maybe first time. Just grab a Miller Lite and maybe do it.
All right.
All right, let's wrap this one up.
Do it.
All right, that'll do it for episode 72 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. Thanks for checking in with us this week. Hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about the history of our journey here and what we've got coming up in front of us. If you haven't yet, head over to iTunes, check us out, give us a 5-star rating and review. You can get caught up on all past episodes at hpoutdoors.com. Check us out on all Facebook, social media, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Come over to the listeners group, hang out. So until next week, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.